Walk me through how you see the impact of $50 oil on Saudi Arabia today, because there's a lot of concern following that IMF report about the $2 trillion in assets from the GCC essentially getting wiped out in the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say the next 20 years. I mean, you have to look at the anomaly. There's the coronavirus, obviously, outbreak that had a huge impact on oil. And you had this nosedive on oil that happened ever since as a result of, obviously, a expected weaker demand in China specifically, and then less, obviously, trade. But we should not look at the $50, $55 oil that we're seeing today, whether WTI or Brent, as the norm. We have an objective. I think the objective of OPEC and Saudi is an above $60 oil, probably a range bound 60 to 70. Never wanted it too high, never wanted it too low. And I think there are some talks about some cuts today as well. And I think Aramco is following suit, for example.
Okay, talk me through this, because there's been a lot of concern surrounding that technical meeting that we saw last week. The fact that the Russians weren't willing to come on board in terms of talking about real cuts. And frankly, the narrative seemed to be coming out of that meeting that the Saudis had, really lost the narrative, in fact. That the fact that they weren't able to push the Saudis or push the Russians forward there, it seemed as if they were losing control.
It's not about Saudi and Russia. I think it's about OPEC and non-OPEC producer. I think the OPEC has, I wouldn't say lost the battle, but the leverage that OPEC has over oil production or oil prices has diminished tremendously over the past few years, specifically with shale oil, with non-OPEC country producing oil, such as Russia and others. And as a result of that, the leverage it's no longer just Saudi. So Saudi was the building block of OPEC. OPEC was the controlling side. It's like you control a minority, like a majority stake in a company that owns 60% of another company. So that's what Saudi was. But today, it's about OPEC, non-OPEC. And I think as much as you would want Saudi to have the swinging vote, I would say, it's much less so than it used to be.
Still seemingly, though, they may have lost the plot.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And how are clients reacting? What's your message to them as they try and invest in this low oil price environment?
Well, you could perceive that as an opportunity in many ways. There are a lot of sectors in this part of the world that actually do benefit a lot from low oil prices. And because low oil prices does create as well some government discipline and fiscal discipline. And in fiscal discipline happens while private sector participation much more. And as a result of that, we've seen it in the past 5 years when oil did hit $27, $28 barrel about 5 years ago in 2015, 16. We've seen actually the government behavior, and I think the 2030 vision and the NTP, National Transformation Program in Saudi Arabia, as a result of lower oil prices. What do we do when we have a commodity that may no longer be as valuable as it is today?